chop all these siege tanks now. Those drones really desperately trying to run for their lives. There's Wednesday Night
vVv gaming. I think what you touched on there is so important, especially as StarCraft 2 sort of advances and grows in not just knowing and being comfortable with a matchup, saying, okay, my ZBT, I know what I'm doing, but being able to research and say, you know what, here's my opponent, these are the builds that I know he is comfortable with, this is his reaction to certain builds, and I'm going to counter it and start playing mind games and basically know what's coming. And I think that StarCraft can really evolve at this point, especially as we get deeper and deeper into it, and I think that's going to be the next evolution of these games.
Yeah, definitely, as we now see Murder spawning on the top left-hand side of the map as the purple Terran player. Meanwhile, Hawk spawning as the teal Zerg player here. And it may be that, well, Hawk is asking if this is the MLG version. And yes, it in fact is the MLG version of the map. And with that, they do know that it is going to be forced cross spawns, and they are going to be checking the positions.
Yeah, so looks like Murder here, proud of his little avatar, which is the Archon, and he is going to be walling off here like every good Terran should. And it'll be interesting to see whether he goes for some sort of rush play like Ruff, his teammate, did, or whether he does get into a macro game. This is Antigua, so you can get on those 3 bases pretty easily. Both players can, especially since it is those forced cross positions. And a lot of times we see mid and late game for the this matchup on this map.
Yeah, we'll see how all of this will play out. Murder most likely will be setting up a barracks and now scouting with this SCV first. As we now take a look into the base of Hawk. Hawk has not set up his his standard 12 spawning pool, and we'll see whether or not he goes for a fast hatchery as well. As now we are seeing a barracks being built on the low ground. So Murder doing a little bit of sneaky play, building a barracks on the low ground. He may build a second barracks on the low ground as well, as we do see a refinery coming in as well.
Yeah, you said that that 12 pool standard for Hawk. I don't think 12 pool is too standard in this matchup. I imagine he will be going for that 15 hatchery. We do see him throwing that down now, and I really like this position on the barracks. Murder's going to be able to get some early pressure. He doesn't have to walk as far with his Marines. He can just lift that up and go back into his main very easily. And I think that's not going to be scouted by Hawk here if he sends a drone over. It really depends on the site of the drone and which side of that chasm right outside of Murder's base the drone does choose to go with. So I really like that position. It's almost no risk for Murder and all reward.
Yeah, definitely, as we now see an SCV make its way out. And right now you see that Hawk doesn't have an Overlord near his hatchery. So this is an important thing to note. And he has very limited view. And if Murder does opt to build a bunker right outside, yes, he is going to... No, he's just going to build it straight up right next door. And Hawk does spot this. A drone now trying to come over, trying to take down this SCV. The SCV perhaps needs to transition back away. He's in a really, really bad position right there. And he's just going to get taken out. As the bunker is now going to get destroyed with only one Marine making the long trek.
Yeah, mistake there by Murder. He did lose that SCV and has to cancel that bunker. He does, again, have this Marine, so he's going to shut down mining on this natural, or at least force these drones to not mine for a little while. But again, didn't cost him too much. He's going to lose a little bit of minerals in canceling that bunker and loses that scouting SCV, but he knows his opponent went for this basically 15 hatch standard build. Might actually pick off a Zergling or two here as well. And he was able to lift up that barracks and transition into a factory here. And it looks like he will be Hellions coming out of the reactor coming up for Murder.
Yeah, right now he is also building a command center at his natural expansion. So we'll see if this is going to work, as Murder realizing that that was a complete failure. We are going into double Hellions now. So Murder going to try to follow up pressure with a little bit more pressure. And we'll see whether or not Hawk does get a spine crawler on the ramp. I do believe that most Zerg players do. There is that spine crawler now, as a Zergling going to perhaps try to destroy that SCV. No, instead going after the supply depot. It looks like the Hellion will be able to finish off the Zergling, as the Hellions are now making their way out.
So this is looking more and more like a standard game. We do have the reactor Hellions coming out, 2 on the way across the field already, and then a 3rd and 4th, and just 1 spine crawler here from Hawk. Sometimes we see a 2nd one added, but if you're able to micro your queens using 2 queens and the 1 spine crawler, it can be plenty of defense. a lot of Terran players really don't want any damage done on those Hellions, so they will pull back and play very passively with those Hellions, just using them to try to control creep. And Hawk doing a nice job here, moving that Spinecrawler forward, and Murder using this opportunity to get by here. He might be able to take down 3 drones.
Yeah, right there, a nice shot, able to take down 3 drones there. And I know Murder has to be happy with that harassment. And now 1 Hellion is down to 20 hit points. It should perhaps get to the back of the line, as 1 more shot from that Spinecrawler will destroy it. But the Harvester count now 34 to 25, as we still see some heavy droning coming in from Hawk, and now Zergling trying to make their way over towards the Hellions and perhaps get a surround if they poke their head up that ramp.
Yeah, Murder has to be really diligent here with these Hellions. He cannot allow a surround to happen. You have to keep these Hellions alive. It's a big investment in minerals, and you can really control creep well. You can get decent scouting information when the Zerg's pushing out, so he's got to keep those alive. And behind this, he's actually expanding to his 3rd. So he will have a quick 3 bases against the 2 bases of Hawk. Hawk is going for that lair, and he's going for an evolution chamber, so we'll see what sort of tech he does decide to go for here. I imagine it will be mutas, but no telling with Hawk.
Yeah, really no telling, as we are now getting into the armor upgrades. The layer about to be completed, as you mentioned, Baneling's Nest now being added, as I still don't really know the strategy of Murder right now. Murder still rather low in terms of production buildings, and now moving out with the factory to do a bit of scouting. You can see that there are also overlords. Hawk does know about the 3rd base. The 2nd base. He does not, however, know about the 3rd base that is currently mining. And with the way that these overlords are positioned, any medevacs that try to fly out and try to be sneaky will be spotted. Marauders being trained at the barracks, and now going into a 5 or perhaps even a 6 racks play, as we are now adding on a tech lab on the factory.
Yeah, you mentioned not really knowing what Murder was going for. He did finish Stim quite early, which made me think he was going to go for heavy upgrades, maybe start combat shields directly after that Stim, but he is getting up these 4 racks at the moment. He has a starport and a factory, so I imagine he's just going to go for a more traditional tank bio here. He is getting the tech lab on that factory, so coming out with just 1 medevac at a time, and Hawk trying to poke in with an overlord at the natural to get a little bit of scouting information. But as you mentioned before, he does not know about that 3rd. He is getting a Spire almost complete, and he's almost got that all-important level 1 carapace upgrade, so he could push out, take his own 3rd, and maybe do a little bit of counter aggression here with Lings and Mutas.
Yeah, one thing that I'm questioning about Murder is getting an a command center or a planetary fortress at the 3rd base, instead of going for an orbital command. So usually when you do try to go for a fast expansion like that, you hope to get every last mineral, every last resource, and that planetary fortress isn't nearly as exposed as, say, at the gold locations. Planetary fortresses can't lift off, they can't move, which makes them a rather stationary unit that is rather expensive to defend with, and is going to be useless later on. We'll see if there's going to be any issues, as now the Mutalisks are chasing after those Hellions. Hellions are now attempting to just drive away. It looks like they will be able to do exactly that, as the Mutalisks now wrestle away map control, and you see Hawk finally establishing his 3rd base.
And nice timing here by Murder. He's got about 5 turrets about to finish, so he's going to have decent turret coverage. I'm not sure if he's got a ton of Marines to take on these Mutas, but he is going to be able to at least defend against this initial pack of Mutas until Hawk does start getting in that 15 to 20 meter range, where you can start 1 or 2 shotting those turrets and really taking them on.
Yeah, we'll see how this is all going to work out now, as we do have a couple of Hellions in the red. It looks like SCVs are coming off the mineral line, and in order to repair, and now more SCVs are being transferred over, as more missile turrets being established by Murder. Murder now 53 SCVs compared to 68 drones, but it is really the mineral patch count, as now Marines are dropping over here in order to deal some damage at the 3rd base, perhaps force a cancellation on the hatchery. Drones are now making their way over. It looks like the hatchery may get taken down to 400 hit points. The Marines are fighting back against these units. The Marines are not upgraded at all. Mutalisks are finally making their way over, as well as the medevac is going to force to drop off the units, as Mutalisks have arrived to finish off that medevac.
I'm not sure whether those Marines were stemmed or not. Hawk had just made a huge round of drones. He made 20 at once, so right now it is 65 drones to 58 SCVs. But remember, Murder has had this 3rd base for basically so much longer than Hawk. He's had it up for probably several minutes at this point, so with mules and that early 3rd, he's definitely going to have the economic advantage, but he is really behind in tech at this point. Siege tech is just finishing up. I think Hawk definitely had a timing there with a ton of Lings. He would have been able to crash through the front door of Murder, since Murder did not have siege tech or tank coverage. But instead, Hawk just sort of going for the Muta harass, but that was shut down by the nice missile turret coverage by Murder.
Yeah, missile turrets now coming in. It looks like the Mutalisk will be able to finish it off, exchanging one. No, not even able to exchange, as now you see the supply depots are getting taken down as well. The Mutalisk being forced to run all the way back as they don't want to engage. And now you see Murder is supply blocked, 134 over 129. And the Marines doing a drop onto the high ground. The Marines are going to stim back around, and the Mutalisk do not want to engage. And as we now see, the units are being picked up and drop back down. Where are those Mutalisks going? The Mutalisks are looking for the medevacs. The Marines are going back down, are going to be able to finish off some of those units here. And some fancy flying as the Marines are now running back into a corner, going after those units, and some Zerglings and Marines both exchanging. But I believe Hawk did get the advantage in that battle.
Yeah, definitely. What Murder needed to do there is try to take down as many Mutas as possible. He could have taken down maybe 3 or 4 before those Marines had died. And that's really just nice map coverage by Hawk here. He's got great Overlord coverage, and he's got Lings, check him out, all over the map in pathways where medevacs could try to sneak by, and it's much easier to lose a Ling, just 25 minerals instead of an Overlord, which can possibly supply cap you and cost 100 minerals. So Hawk basically using everything at his disposal here to get scouting, and now pushing into the third, going to take down those missile turrets very easily. I think Murder could be in trouble here with the amount of Mutas on the field.
Yeah, mass Mutas, 24 Mutalisks in the air. Still no Thors to be trained just quite yet. Thors are rather slow, not very... They're the counter, technically, to Mutalisks, but in application, very difficult when the Mutalisk does move almost twice as fast as the counter unit, can easily run away, and then that magic box technique. Mutalisk now running straight in, gonna take down one missile turret, take down another, and now all of these production buildings are pretty much ripe for the picking, as Marines are now trying to defend the barracks that they came out from, but there are simply too many Mutalisks in the sky, especially with the armor upgrades, as the Marines are upgraded 1-0, the Mutalisks are upgraded 0-1.
Yeah, so he's able to take down a barracks there. It can be pretty big in stopping the production of the Terran player, and he's just bouncing between the third and the main. He's doing a lot of damage, not just superficial damage. He's taking down turrets in 1 or 2 shots, then he's taking supply depots, SCVs, and production. Murder is doing his best to macro up and get to 200. He's at 170 at the moment, and he's got to push out and do some sort of damage once he gets close to the max.
Definitely, as right now we see 57 harvesters compared to 82, so army compositions are actually much larger for Hawk, as Hawk sitting at almost 10,000 total resources, with majority of that being in Mutalisks, 21 Mutalisks in the air for a total of 4,200 resources. And we'll see where this is all going to head, as we now see the swarm of Zerglings and Banelings on a roll to meet and greet that Terran army.
I'm not sure whether it's got enough tank spread here or any sort of bunkers or supply depot wall off. The Banelings, if they're able to get in here, can just cause havoc and take down a lot of those Marines. The Marines overextending a little bit, and those Banelings could take them down. Murder needs to do his best to micro back and run away from these Banelings. He also needs to focus the Banelings with the tanks. A lot of Banelings actually exploding on tanks there. Not sure many Banelings are left. He might be able to survive this with those Marines, though. A few Baneling hits do go off. Not a lot of Marines left against these Mutas, but it looks like Hawk gonna pull back, macro up 76 Lings on the way.
Yeah, that was a really nice exchange there, knowing that he had so much food to work with. He still has over 4,000 resources to play around with still, as the Marines are chasing desperately after those Mutalisks moving around so quickly. And one siege tank not going to be able to do very much against these Mutalisks here, as Overlords and Mutalisks are getting taken down. One, perhaps 2 Mutalisks were taken down in that engagement, but a new swarm of Zerglings should be joining in on this fight. Excuse me, a new swarm of Banelings, as Hawk apparently trying to bust this game open.
Yeah, Hawk's quickly going to remax here, and he's going to have another remax after this. He still has 1,500 minerals in the bank, so Zerglings immediately going to be started once these once these standing army of Zerglings do go down. Then he's going to bank enough gas by the time the new Zerglings spawn to make more Banelings. As long as he doesn't lose too many Mutas in this exchange, he should be able to take it. These Banelings pushing in here, hoping to connect with his Marines, doing their best to kite away from the Banelings, with just so many Banelings with speed rolling into those Marines. and most of them have been taken down. Murder does have 66 SCVs, so his army is basically about 60 supply at the moment. He does have decent positioning in his natural with tanks and Marines, but Hawk just did a lot of damage to the standing army of Murder.
Yeah, right there, siege tanks, and now you can also see a planetary fortress mining away at the gold, 81 to 65, but still a 60 food difference, as you mentioned. And Hawk has really been just running up, and perhaps the total losses are pretty even right now, but Hawk with a stronger economic advantage after taking the gold and also taking the 6 o'clock expansion that Murder, I do not believe, knows about just quite yet.
Yeah, again, Murder has to try to get to 200 here and push out and really do some economic damage. Prevent Hawk from being able to remax it over and over. We've got a lot of missile turrets about to go down in the third for Murder. I'm not sure whether he has the Marines to defend against this. Stims up just a portion of his Marines, hoping to take down a few of those mutas, but the mutas escape without any damage. And with exchanges like that, it's going to be very difficult for Murder to get back in this one.
Yeah, at this stage, my advice to Murder would be get the autosec tracking, get the armor upgrades. Those missile turrets are basically your lifeline, and as soon as they go, everything else is completely wide open. As you now see, siege tanks battling up against Marines. Banelings may find all of those Marines there, and that is going to be a very, very heavy hit, as the Mutalisk can pretty much now go unchallenged.
A lot of his Marines still in the third for Murder, so he doesn't even have all of his forces together. He's got decent SimCity here, basically shutting down some of the paths of attack for these Banelings and Lings, doing his best to get some siege tanks into siege mode. Now finally coming in here with these Marines, which were in the third. They've got a few medevacs doing their best to keep them alive, but taking on all these mutas right now, it's basically 2 full rows, about 16 mutas, able to almost one-shot those Marines as they do their best to defend. But I think Murder definitely going to go down here. It is now 174 to 88, and Hawk just running wild here.
Yeah, Murder still with about 14 Marines inside his third base, not engaging with them, as Zerglings are now still running or just trying to get inside the base. As soon as the Zerglings can go in unchecked, their high DPS gonna cause problems. Zerglings just filing in, and it's just going to be a matter of time as some of the Zerglings are even taking a break outside in the middle of the map and saying, I don't want to run that far. I think my brothers can handle it.
Yeah, so Hawk just cleaning this one up. Murder doesn't have a ton of SCVs left, just 34. He does have his third. He does have that gold still mining. And I think that's a smart decision by Hawk not to take on that planetary fortress until he really has to. He's taking down all the production first, and then that planetary and that tank at the planetary going to be the last thing he decides to take on. But still staying maxed here. He's got a great economy and just hoping to finish off Murder. Yep,
you can see starports and other buildings being landed to force some sort of crazy maze to attack, but the Zerglings destroying the walls of that maze now. Murder is going to be forced to lift off all of his buildings and perhaps try to restructure them. Murder is still not giving up, though. You can see that he's at 36 SCVs compared to 69 drones. You can see Marines are coming around the far side, perhaps trying to do a bit of a drop or a sneak run by, but that's not going to work, as the medevac is going to have a very bad day with those Mutalisks in the skies.
Yeah, just great scouting by Hawk, constantly shutting down all the drops and the flanks that Murder was going for. I mean, Murder tried at least 2 double drops there, and you're a Terran player, you know if those 16 Marines land somewhere in a mineral line, it can be so devastating. So being able to catch those and take them down without taking any sort of damage was huge in this game, and it really allowed Hawk to sort of sit back, macro up, and then throw wave after wave after wave of Ling and Baneling at the front door of Murder.
Definitely. Right now, all Hawk has to do is just get off the final couple of kills, take down more units. It looks like Murder looking to take down more destructible rocks. The orbital command may burn down if he's not careful. No, it is going to be repaired, as I believe there's a Zergling blocking a Murder from being able to land his orbital command. Apparently the orbital command cannot squish a Zergling. Very, very durable units, as the barracks are now all being destroyed as well. And now this is the last holdout here. Banelings trying to make their way in will be able to do exactly that. Take down the planetary fortress, and the GG should be coming in.
Yeah, 30 to 152, and again, just such a bank for Hawk at this point. No production left from Murder. He's got all these barracks down, but the Lings and the Mutas are in the supply line. Murder at 14 food, at 13 food, and at this point, just fighting to his last breath. Maybe he hasn't played in a while and wants to get some more SC2 in by making this game longer, but finally there's the GG. And vileHawk all kills vVv Gaming 4-0 on Wednesday Night Starcraft here. Very impressive in all those games.